Wow, it's been a really intense 6 months. I arrived back in Canada from my solo sailing voyage at the end of June, where I had crossed the Atlantic twice in my little boat, a 26-foot Contessa. But since arriving back, it has been really intense. We managed to get the building permits in place by mid-July, and since then we've been busy at it building this structure, a 24 by 32 foot storage building, which is the beginning of our Homestead project. Now, in the corner of this building, this little 12 by 12 room, we've insulated it and made it quite livable. So this will be the toehold that we'll have on the property as we build out the rest of the homestead. Later in the year, that's 2021, we hope to start the homestead house, hopefully by early summer. We also want to have a big productive garden in place, a vegetable garden. We plan to do a lot of tree planting, establish an orchard, and we also have the idea that we're going to get hens, laying hens for eggs, just as soon as possible in the spring, and then later in the summer we'll raise some chickens for meat. So even though we have a really ambitious building schedule planned for 2021, we do plan to get stuck right into what a homestead is all about. Not just building, but the actual production of food, being self-sufficient in that department. Anyway, this evening, Mrs.Rover is coming out. She's currently at her job, and she'll be out here this evening, and I've promised to create a very unforgettable Christmas dinner. So wish me luck.
In the last episode, Mrs. Rover and I put the metal siding on the building and the roof. And in this episode, before I can make Christmas dinner for Mrs. Rover, I've got a lot of details I have to work out, starting with getting power hooked up to this building. Since the last video, Maritime Electric has shown up, and using flashlights because it was after dark, they were able to hook me up to the grid. Meanwhile, inside the building, I was able to put some OSB, that's oriented strand board, on the wall and get some much needed shelving put up. If you remember from the last episode, we got the drywall up. Now in this episode, I need to get the seams filled and the screw heads filled with drywall compound, which is commonly known as mud, drywall mud.
Well, that's this seam. It's the last horizontal seam that I had to do. It has 3 coats. The trick is with drywalling to put the thinnest amount of mud on possible to avoid any big chunks of drywall mud hardening on you, and then you have to sand it. So it's best just to put a little bit on. After it's dry, knock any ridges off with your knife and then approach with the sanding. But I must say, I am not an expert at this. I'm just someone who's playing around with drywall and drywall mud. I'm not an expert by any means. So I'm here inside what will be my future office inside the homestead shop, possibly a place to stay and live as well. But anyway, it needs some shelves also, so I'm going to mount some right behind me.
That was easy. Now on to the next job. Before cracking on with the next job, I just wanted to take a moment and show you what it looks like out the window. We're having our first proper blizzard of the year. However, in 2 days' time on Christmas Day, it's going to be 53 degrees. My neighbor very graciously gave me 2 bunk beds that they used to have in a camp they operated. Now they just need a few little tweaks to make them work for our situation. Next, let's install the casing around the windows.
So we're putting the quarter round around the window, and in order to put a joint in each corner, a 90-degree joint, you just don't miter them. You create what's called a cope joint. It's a very nice joint. It looks as though it's mitered, but in fact, the correct way to do this is to cut a scallop on the inside, and then it fits right over top and gives you a really nice joint. So let's go and see how that's cut. So the next step in doing the quarter round is to cut it to length. So I've cut this to 35 1/4. That's the length I need. But now I have to do that cope joint on the end. So at this end right here, I'll be cutting a 45-degree angle, and I'll be doing that on the chop saw. So there it is, there's the cut. Now what we need to do is to remove anything that's not on the painted surface. And we'll do that with a coping saw. So now we're ready to cut the joint. So I've done the 45 on the chop saw. Now I have to remove this wooden section with a coping saw. It's just a little saw with a very thin blade that's very good for going around corners. Now, don't try to do it perfectly. I mean, if you can, that's great, but for the rest of us, we just want to get fairly close to the edge, and then we'll use a rasp to get it pretty much dead on, and then clean it up with a nice little file. So, enough, let's get started. And one thing I didn't tell you is you don't want to go perpendicular. You actually want to cut a bit of a backing angle because that'll make the filing so much easier. So let's move on now with the filing. So let's see if we can get this in focus. So it's pretty close. We're just going to clean it up just a little bit. That's so close. Right, time to go do a test fit. Well, that's pretty good. I think we can just nail that up as it is. So now I'm putting the casing around the window. So the casing is just cut at 45 degrees on each end, and that's done with the miter saw, which we saw just a few moments ago. It just butts up like this, and it's a nice joint, and then you just nail it. All right, let's get on with that.
Well, all that's left now is just to do a bit of a tidy up and then cook the best Christmas dinner Mrs. Rover has ever had.
Well, what do you think?
Oh, it looks delicious.
From all of us here at Rover's Rest,
We wish you a very Merry Christmas.
and a happy, healthy, and productive new year.
Cheers. Oh, just a moment. I've got something for you.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So join us in the next episode
really
when we
does
find
look
out what exactly did Mrs. Rover put in that bag. So until then, God bless.
Now, let's try this one.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Ready, and...
Oh, wait.
You have to hold
Keep
the
on.
paper part. Oh, there we go. We have to snap the other one. There we go.
Oh.